Let me know when we're live, Newton. Is that it?
I don't see anything.
Why is there an echo? Why is there an echo, Newton?
I don't know.
That's why. Because I had YouTube on. Is it live, Newton?
Yeah.
I'm live. I'm live, friends. Am I live and good? There's a 30-second delay. Friends, I'd like to welcome you to my first podcast. I'm really excited. Tonight, I'm very blessed to have Julian Somers here. He is he's an addiction specialist. We kind of found each other through social media. I believe a lot of the stuff that I was posting up over the past year, we just kind of linked. I saw a lot of stuff that he was doing. After I started to get a sense of who this gentleman was, I immediately wanted to reach out and talk to him. And once we started collaborating, I knew it was only a matter of time before I wanted to do this and create this podcast and have him on as a guest. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. Let's see how this works. Are we here?
Hey, Mr. Brome, am I here?
Hey, awesome to see you. This is amazing. I was sitting like 5 minutes before I sat down here. I was sitting there watching TV and I was amazed with technology today. 20 years ago, we'd have none of this. And we're so blessed that we have this opportunity to share as much information as we can. And great information. A lot of it's fluff. A lot of people put up a lot of fluff stuff, but every once in a while, I get an opportunity to watch the work of other people. And once I found you on the internet, I started doing some research, and I was just absolutely amazed with everything you've done. And I knew there was a backstory to you. I knew this guy's not just a doctor. He must have been a DJ or something back in the day. So without further ado, I just guests, welcome to Julian. And can you give us like a 30-second, 60-second sort of, who's Julian?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's unfolding. Ask me tomorrow. You'll get a different answer maybe. I'm a psychologist and a professor, and I started out very much on the clinical side. I'm still clinically active, but I started out exclusively on the clinical side really early in my life, focusing on addiction, and I was kind of drawn into that for a few reasons, I guess, and then lived through advising governments for a long time. I'm an old guy now. And had this very strange experience here in BC, where the advice that I had been giving, I've been working with these guys for a long time in this provincial government, and all of a sudden, the ideas that I had been building and that were the basis of most of my advice that I continue to provide elsewhere where it's valued, all of a sudden became anathema in BC, and so that's kind of bringing things up to the minute in terms of where I'm at, because I've realized through all this that it matters far too much to me to see the potential for improvement in BC come about than it does to walk away and sort of step out of the fray. And that was clearly a choice. A lot of people were telling me, go away.
Why would you? You're such a good-looking guy.
I had to sort of think about that, right, at my age. Like, what do I want to do, right? And I had this. It was probably one of the nicest things personally to come out of it for me, is that no, this is like hugely, hugely consequential, and there's no place I'd rather be than in a position like we are today, talking about how we can make substantial improvements. And I loved your comment about technology, because evolutionarily we've moved to drum beats, right? We've moved to we keep us in sync when we're doing something, and technology allows us to kind of have a drumbeat that will connect millions and millions of people, potentially, right? And it starts here.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just go back to, I watch a lot of TV. I probably watch way too much. I don't have TV. Sorry, I don't have global. I don't have
We know
CTV.
what you mean, man. Yeah.
It's a YouTube. It's not YouTube. It's not nothing. Actually, here. I just want to say, I've been wanting to tell you this, and I've been wanting to tell the viewers this. Christmas. It's Christmas, right? It's Christmas season. Well, what do families do at Christmas? And people say, oh, Canada's losing its culture. We're all high. We're all loaded. But, what do we do at Christmas? It's always been a Christmas sort of thing for my family, is to go see a movie. Well, of course, I don't go to see movies anymore. I usually just order them now on my TV, because I've got everything I need here. And I turned on Tron, the one that was filmed mainly in Vancouver. And I sat there after like 4 minutes, and I was almost in tears as I watched the kid jump off the building and then take the parachute down and then get on his bike after he got arrested and let out of jail. He was at the City Hall, was the police station in the movie, and then he burned over First Street and went over the hump. And my eyes were teared up, because this isn't the Vancouver anymore that I was raised in. This isn't the communities I was surrounded by across Canada. I mean, just in the past 5 months, I've had the absolute opportunity to raise a little bit of money so that I can do the work that I do. I do this all for free. I'm actually on disability. That's a whole nother long story. But I've had the opportunity to go to the United Kingdom. I've traveled all across London and Scotland. That was August, September. I came home and I knew I had to do the work that we do, and had an opportunity to go to Ontario. I've had the opportunity to go to Calgary. Next week, I'm heading off to Manitoba. And everywhere I go, it's the same unfortunate pattern. And this isn't, like I said, I want to get back to what it was like back in the 90s. I don't know if it will ever get there the way it was. Obviously it won't, but if we can get back to some sort of a normalcy, if that makes any sense, it's a long road to get there. And this is one of the big reasons I have you on, is to talk about, how we got to where we are. I have my own story, as I'm sure you do too. I was homeless. I was living on the street. I survived the street for 19 months in Vancouver. I would sleep in places like, I don't talk about this, but because you're here, I'll drop a few. I used to sleep in the Mohawk gas station down at the bottom of Fraser Street on Marine Drive. Now, I remember it was so cold, I would sleep in the bathroom that you had to go through the outside, and it's cold, there's snow. And I would put my jacket I'd take my clothes out and put it underneath the crack of the door and use the thing to prop my head up. And then I became a leveled up homeless person. I figured out if you go into the Hotel Vancouver at 6 o'clock in the morning, that's when the security did their change, and you can go into the handicap washroom and sleep on heated granite floors. So you go from like being a new person to the street to this type of person. And it's kind of how I've always evolved. When I throw myself into something, there's no half measures for me. It's like all or nothing. And my stories, I got sober. I got stabbed in 96. Was in the hospital. Kind of woke up and had to make a decision. Do I want to live or do I want to die? And luckily enough, back then you could go to detox and you could detox. And I went to a beautiful recovery house called CCL. They actually told me there I was not well enough to stay there. So I had to go to the hospital and check in. And went to the hospital, and the psychiatrist is like, there's nothing wrong with you. You have addiction problems. You need to go back to treatment. You need to go back to recovery house. I'm like, holy, I was there for 45 minutes at St. Paul's Hospital. And so I went back, finished off my treatment, and I leveled up. It was a couple of years after that that went back to work in the nightclubs, did security work, private bodyguard stuff. And for my parents, I was so blessed the day that I got the job managing the front door of the Commodore Ballroom. I'll never forget it, September 1999. I phoned my mom, and I told my mom, and she was like, I got a family secret for you. And I'm like, well, what's that? She goes, well, your cousin, my cousin died. She overdosed in a hotel, a rooming house on Hornby back in the late 60s. She was a hostess at the Commodore. Her son also overdosed, heroin overdose. So it runs in the family, right? But I just, I went and played professional football for a minute. Broke my back. This is my story. I broke my back in 2000, had surgery, ended football career, went and started working in government contracts. So that's really my career is the last 25 years. I've worked in families. I've worked with families. I had 976 kids through my one home for the Ministry for Children and Family Development, which is absolutely insane. If you think about that one, 976. I adopted the last foster child that I had into 2008, had a second back surgery and came out of that surgery on a lot of medication. And I was then physically dependent to opiates, and I couldn't stop. It wasn't that I was unmanageable. My job was good. My career was good. My wife was good. My kids, everything was fine. But I couldn't go 4 or 5 days without popping the pills. I just couldn't. Never abused them. But in 2019, that happened. And again, got in a car accident, went in the hospital, came out, and they just had me on a slew, like a handful of opiates. And I tried to get clean. I couldn't do it. Phone detox. I needed help. They're going to offer me they're going to offer me another drug. And this is when I started learning what the heck has happened to our province. How do you help people? You can't help people anymore because you just keep giving them drugs. So I started becoming very interested in how we got to where we were in 2021. And that's when I'm sitting at home and I'm watching YouTube. I went back to school. I'm now a civil and family mediator with a designation in negotiation and addiction and trauma. And this is when I started watching and listening to people like you and the other guy, the big MP now that did Canada's Dying and Vancouver is Dying. I think Vancouver's dead, unfortunately. But I started really listening to you, and I'd like you to let our viewers know, how did we get here? Like methadone was given out in 1972 by Hicks, what is it, the president down in the States. Like we've gotten to a place. So can you give the viewers kind of just like a quick timeline of how we got to like 2015 or 2010?
Okay.
It's a big question, I know, but you're the expert, bro. This is why I have you on here.
So I think anyone who's interested in this, it makes sense to kind of start only about 200 years ago. And that's the whole story of modern addiction, only really 200 years ago.
Okay.
It's because it's mainly driven by social changes that are associated with post-industrial life and the ability to isolate drugs. And of course, we had alcohol, which only distills or ferments up to a certain percentage, and so the standards are somewhat controllable. We didn't have that for anything that came from plants until about 200 years ago. So the very idea of addiction involving drugs, the way we know it today, wasn't really possible and didn't happen much before that. Then the OG addict group were doctors and pharmacists, people who had access to these drugs.
Old school gangsters.
Yeah. That was the first group that was written about. And then the second group were people that became addicted because they got the drugs from their doctors. And this is all in the 1800s still.
1800s, yeah.
It wasn't until the 1900s and really post-war that another group emerged that suddenly eclipsed in size those other two groups. And in Canada, a census of the opiate addict population was conducted in the 50s. So really now all of a sudden we're not that long ago.
Mhm.
And more than half of,
where did 1,950 years go? Come on, where's that
yeah.
story?
Well,
Just kidding.
yeah. So there's a very interesting. There is
I'm just
a
kidding.
fascinating story of addiction.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go dip way back, I guess we could start by acknowledging what this thing addiction refers to. And
Please.
the first uses always refer to two things. So today, addiction is known as an autoantonym or a Janus word, points in two opposite directions at the same time. So you could be, if you would be an addict, if you weren't able to pay your debts and you were thereby given to the person as a slave, you were an addict. You had no control, right? You had no control at all. All of the control was coming to you from the person who now owned you. Okay.
Working the
But
farm,
you
working the
could also
factory.
be an addict in a devotional sense. So you could addict yourself to God, to the
Oh,
community. And in that way, you could harmonize your being with some higher force. The higher force now is influencing your mode, but the key difference between this addict and that addict is that the slave has their control taken away from them. The addict that devotes themselves voluntarily gives control to
mhm.
some kind of a higher purpose, right? But both
Yes.
are addicted. Both are overwhelmingly consumed with whatever it is the source of their authority. So that's the history lesson from way back. But
Thank you
coming
so
up
much.
to sort of
Let's
more
start at
modern
50.
times,
Yeah.
most of the addict population was in BC, and the vast majority of them were not doctors or patients that had become addicted through treatment, but were identified as criminal addicts. So this is where modernity comes in. All of a sudden, we had urbanization and large numbers of people who, if we didn't keep them well occupied and engaged and forward thinking, they could stall out. They could experience a loss of control over their own
Mhm.
ability to move forward. And these are unfortunately easy prey for
The unmanageability part.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's and there's now just a very, very rich body of research demonstrating how the risk for addiction is really, it really makes very important. It's very important to see it in the context of psychosocial integration,
Correct.
a sense of purpose, connection, meaning, a future, perhaps a past. And if you look at a way of illustrating this for people, might be that, well, first of all, the vast majority of people who we've lost to the most recent crisis of drug poisonings in Canada, the vast majority of them were working age young people who were unemployed and had been unemployed for a number of years. In BC, where drug poisoning has become the leading cause of preventable death among youth, up to 3/4 of those kids received care from the Ministry for Children and Family Development, which administers foster care. I know
I
you
know.
have.
I know it all
And
too
I'm an
well.
adopted guy. I had 3 families, and of course, I don't mean to tarnish an entire sector by pointing
Yeah.
these things out, but the key thing is this is not some kind of randomly distributed risk in our
No.
population. It is highly, highly related to psychosocial integration. And fortunately, those are things we can fix. This is not like what I'm saying to you is not something that's only recently been discovered. There are
Oh,
well-established programs that address this, including the
I knew
very
this.
earliest uses of methadone in the late 50s and early 60s. The very first program actually was here in Vancouver.
Methadone.
Mm-hmm.
The first program in North America was in Vancouver.
Late 50s. Late
Late
50s. It's kind
50s.
of
What about
conceptually.
What about Scotland? Do you know anything about Scotland? Because when I was there, I was talking to some addiction people, like at the clinic, and they were telling me that Scotland, Glasgow especially, it's been rampant. I guess that one there was one clinic there where they gave out the most methadone, and all of Europe was in this one little clinic right down by the Clyde, the River Clyde. I was blown away.
Wouldn't surprise me. In fact, I would expect that because Scotland has the highest prevalence of drug poisonings, drug fatalities in all of Europe. Well, I guess all of Western Europe, depending on how you divide things, but by a lot. And they've, like parts of North America, including BC, they've kind of been drawn down into a path of responding to that crisis of poisonings in a very reactive way, and in a way that tends to feature pharmaceuticals as one of the first things that you do. The early methadone programs, which no one really reads anymore, and which were highly successful, from the Journal of the American Medical Association, the title said, "Successful Treatment of 750 Criminal Addicts." That's the paper that put methadone on the map. You know, so this was 95% treatment success. No more crime, no more addiction, working. And the authors said methadone played a tiny role in the intervention. And of course, a drug can't achieve what we're reporting. The reason we were successful was because our team was devoted to ensuring that people were reestablished as citizens, and they spent up to 2 years with them. They got them off methadone before they discharged them from the program, because still being on methadone was considered like not a complete success. In the 70s, after President Nixon, you referred to this earlier, dramatically expanded addiction treatment, like a 10 times increase in spending on addiction treatment in the US. And it was mostly dispensing methadone.
Was it related to money? Was that partly money? It was a money-making thing more than like what we did? Yes. I mean, I know you can't say, but
I can
there's a lot of money to be made.
I can say, and I guess part of the importance of knowing this history, though, is that, by the way, the authors of the original studies wrote in 1976 in JAMA saying, "Hey, what the White House and all of our medical doctors are now doing missed the plot. You're never going to achieve improvement." And they were pessimistic, unfortunately, and by now, though, generations of medical students have been taught this same kind of lore that the active ingredient in these early methadone success stories was the drug.
Yes.
Easy, right? Just easy to remember. Biochemical imbalance, chronically relapsing brain disease, right? Like just gibberish, honestly, because none of it really makes sound scientific sense at all.
Word salad.
It's convenient. We move along. And people, like I've been quite startled to learn how illiterate some of our leaders are in relation to this whole area of addiction. So,
David Eby. What did he just say? Sorry. Was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when he's implementing, the drugs to the kids, and we're going to take the kids out of foster care, put them into forced treatment, and we're going to give them some drugs. I watched him. It was a mind fuck for me. The guy said he just learned what buprenorphine was. This is December 10th. And I just and a lot of this changed for me. It was June the 11th, 2020.
Yeah.
When the lady of the hour every morning at 11 o'clock, she got up in front of the Global and she started to cry about how many people had passed away in April from overdose. And I was like, wait a second. I know some people, and I know she gets the coroner report like a long time before that. So this is an act. And then I started going like, it's their lies. Some know, some don't, but some of them and most of them I have conversations. I've had conversations with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 MLAs of the province over the past 6 months. And most of them have no idea what's going on in the language of recovery or addiction. It blew me away. Yeah. And they're supposed to be protecting the public. And as you said, is like every time I go downtown and I talk to these people, everyone knows what I do. A huge percentage of them have been working. Their last job was between 2017 and 2022. They're working full time. Guy had a truck company, she worked in the nurse. They're all regular people working. But for whatever reason, they slept 3 months. In 3 months, it only takes 3 months to lose everything in your mind, and then lose everything, and you're on the street, and there's no supports, there's no help unless you're not a white guy. Sorry, had to say it, but it's just the reality of the world right now. And it's so sad that they don't understand what's going on, and how did this happen? Like, these people are supposed to be in power.
Yeah, it's not the elected officials that make the biggest difference in setting policies. It's the public servants that are advising them. Those people don't change with elections, not usually. They're embedded, and they establish a culture and sort of a way of seeing things and a way of doing things. And in BC, I think it's important for people to understand we look very different than other places in the world, and that's like pretty much every place. There's no other place in the world that has decriminalized all drugs and provided pharmaceutical analogs of all the drugs that people consume addictively to people who are living in poverty. There's no place even thinks that's a good idea that I'm aware of. So
and all the people that
right?
all the people that I talk to that have these massive YouTubers that come into Vancouver, that I have conversations with, that boots on the ground. They've been across the world, across like Afghanistan. They've been all over North America, and they're stupefied with how bad BC is. Vancouver, because they don't go through BC, but BC is just the small towns like Prince George, Kelowna, Victoria, Nanaimo, Campbell River, Quesnel, Hickson, Mackenzie. I can go on and on. This is my home. It's just a microcosm of what's going on here. So let's go.
It's a model, and in some ways, BC has been used as a kind of a show suite for how you can push certain addiction policies that foreground pharma. And you mentioned Scotland. I mentioned Scotland. Scotland has been on the receiving end, the government, of policy advice from BC. And so have other jurisdictions. Look at what Washington is doing now, Washington State. And
got some good friends down there.
Their panel recommended decrim. They recommended safe supply. And the news reported that this panel's work had been received by legislators and within hours was being repudiated. But you look at, well, how could a group that's supported by the state reach sort of the same conclusions that people are reaching in Scotland, that people are reaching in BC and in other states? And how is that? And you look at their references, it all comes from the same BC academics. So BC has been used essentially. We don't need to disclose funds from pharmaceutical sectors or private donors in Canada the same way that you would if you were in the United States. And we also have an astonishingly backward, or I shouldn't say backward, uninformed political class here. And so they appear, and I don't have any reason not to say this or to impugn more malicious motives. I think they thought they were getting the best possible advice. Unfortunately, that advice not only deviates with advice internationally, but it reflects really clear evidence of conflicts of interest. And that's both on the housing side and on the drug policy side. So I don't want to just leave that hanging.
No, it's so important. Every time I listen to you, and I've watched a lot of people speak, and every time I listen, even if I've heard it before from you, it just goes in a different way, and I'm able to analyze it from different information that I've taken, and it's absolutely amazing.
Well, to me, it was a first. Maybe I should insert here that there are two pretty distinct policy approaches that have been incubated over a number of years, and that now are kind of prominent. And one happens to be on display in Alberta. And this is basically, and without, their model appears to be performing well. So I'll jump to sort of the bottom line right now. But the point I was wanting to make is that this is taking an all of government view. So addiction, if we agree that it represents some kind of psychosocial lack of integration, and that helping someone overcome their addiction is probably going to involve some restoration of the experience of citizenship. So something big like that, meaningful. Well, if a lot
It
of
would
them
be
are coming
nice.
in and out of jail, then the minister who's responsible for jails needs to work closely with the minister who's responsible for housing and maybe healthcare and helping people find jobs and stuff, so that when the person leaves jail, they go directly into some kind of healthy housing, or they have choices that they can make about that, and they have some support. Or, as they're doing in Alberta, when people are in jail, they're given the opportunity to not only detox, but begin pursuing recovery while they're serving their sentence on a dry unit. And that's a super
That's
cool.
my question. They have dry units
Yeah.
there because like I have family that work in corrections in BC. My nephew actually is a correctional officer, and talking with people that around him, and learning more about this. Just every day I learn just more information just keeps coming in. They're giving out the pills, they're giving out everything right in jail. I mean, I hear it from the guys on the street. And one
It's
thing
kind of
about
the
Alberta,
opposite.
yeah, it's just crazy. One thing that when I went to Alberta last month for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, what really blew me away, and a side story that was just really troubling, and it's a video that's kind of gone quite crazy on one of my channels, is a kid. He's 20 years old, and he's doing trank, and he was with his dealer. I got off the plane, I get off the bus right in front of City Hall, and this kid's flailing about. And I'm like, well, what? I know all the drugs. I know what people are doing and what happens to them. What's this? I've never seen this before. So I asked the girl that's beside him, I'm like, hey, who is this? Oh, we were just smoking some trank together. I'm like, oh, beautiful. Huh? Want to go for a coffee? Like, what the fuck? I'm like, why is he dancing like that? Why is he flailing? And it was the saddest thing. She said, in Calgary, in Alberta, and Saskatchewan, Manitoba, she said this straight to me. If someone smokes Fetty and they fall asleep and fold over in the curb, they die because it's too cold. So what they've been doing is they try to stay awake. So they move around really fast. And I guess it's in the movement of moving around really fast while they're falling into that Fetty fold, they get a euphoric experience, and they just keep dancing. The guys will dance for like 5 or 10 minutes. I was like, wow, this is leveling up, I guess, if you're out there. But the one thing that was really, really profound to me in Calgary is they have this building. It's 7 stories high. At night, there's room for 1,200 people to sleep, homeless people. And everything is in one place. I walked through it. I never brought my camera. I got an invite, so I went through it, and everything was in one place. I had a great conversation with a gentleman who's gone through the harm reduction. He got a shot of Sublocade, and now he's just getting back into the swing of things. It's really amazing. And then lastly, I went to the I think you told me about it, the AARC, the Adolescent Recovery Center.
Yeah.
The doctor there that has a program there. They've got a hockey rink in the a bubbled hockey rink in the back. They've got basketball courts, a little soccer pitch. There's about 30 kids that are part of that program. It's a forced treatment program. It's a court-ordered thing. But all the kids, they go there all during the day. There's about 10 group homes that are attached to this place, and the kids never sleep in the same house more than one night. So they don't know where they're sleeping, but they're so protected. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, Julie's like, how are we not doing this stuff? Like, how are we not doing this stuff? What's the biggest thing? Is it the pharma? Is it the money that these people are making? Because like, I got this thing here, like this, my friends, is a Pyrex cracky pipe. I got this from a store downtown. They're selling them for $6. I have done some deep diving today and actually I lied. I phoned a company that sells these things to the SROs and stuff. So the government pays like $4 for these, $4 each. And at every SRO and throughout BC, if you're high, you go downstairs. I need to get some dope. Can I get a pipe? And they'll give you 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just government wastage. And I'm thinking there's some fraud going on somehow, somewhere, like something's going on. But is this, do you think, the main purpose for all these SROs and stuff? Is it money? Because people, they don't want people to die. I mean, we're human. We don't want that. And like you said, you know, the elected officials don't know, and it's the policymakers behind the elected officials that are creating, you know, these things to happen. Is this what's going on? Your opinion?
Yeah. I think there are two areas, two spheres of influence that I've come to see as hogging the agenda and dysfunctionally hogging the agenda. And one is the housing sector, which for many years the BC Housing, which essentially is the public entity responsible for helping people move forward in terms of the housing component in BC. They've been completely focused, I mean, almost to the exclusion of everything else, on housing people together and lowering the barriers in their terminology, but basically just eroding the sort of the standards and even the dignity, safety of buildings that they're providing to people. And from a psychosocial integration perspective, that's only making addiction worse, even if you're not providing drugs to people. But then they're doing that too. So one side is this housing component that I should let people know, we have evidence from randomized controlled trials, including trials that I led in Vancouver, showing very clearly that people have better outcomes moving from homelessness into dispersed, supported, healthy housing, which they tend to choose, than if you house them all together. Leaving aside whether you give them drugs, we didn't give them drugs, but if you house them all together, the rate of crime, the rate of medical emergencies is no different statistically than people who stay on the street. Yeah. But if you move people into healthy housing, their trajectories are completely different. So BC Housing knew this, had evidence from multiple trials, including ours, and they completely sort of ignored us and doubled down, tripled down on spending on low barrier structures that then they included drug consumption sites in those buildings. Now it gets worse. The CEO was married to the CEO of the leading housing service provider, which grew from 17 million to 70 over a very short period of time while he was CEO. And the Ernst & Young audit, which reports this, also reports that the CEO started a private company known as HIC, made himself CEO of that company, and diverted what appeared to be north of $70 million of public funds that were entrusted to BC Housing into HIC. And I say appears to because Ernst & Young reported that HIC had at least $17 million in outstanding loans. So they were operating as a bank. So not only is all this happening, but what are media doing about it?
Who? Media?
Media. Who's is taking millions of dollars from the public into a company that you've made yourself CEO of on the private side? Is that not a crime?
No.
Is the public not owed? So all of a sudden there's this silence. The other side was drugs. And we have a very small, quite zealous, pro-drug, pro-legalization faction in BC that spans a certain number of clinicians and a core of academics, a number of whom, interestingly, have no clinical background at all and are not specialists in addiction.
Bonnie Henry.
Well, so that's our provincial health officer. Bonnie is on record saying that people with opioid addiction don't recover the way that people with alcohol dependence do, which is mind-bogglingly inaccurate, like wrong, like you couldn't be more wrong. She also says that we need to legalize all drugs, ideally, because we all know that prohibition was bad and legalizing alcohol made things better. Again, she is completely backward. Alcohol use and related problems were far lower during prohibition than they were both before and after, and it took decades for the levels of use and related problems to surpass the rates that were present in North America prior to Prohibition. So this whole story that's being told is they're basically making shit up in order to promote a narrative. Everyone is at risk. This is partly what made me unacceptable in the BC context. Was
Julian, tell us what happened. So it's for people backstory. Julian was a part of this research group. He was, I think, the lead of the research group, and then you were told to like destroy some stuff, and then you were told to sort of sit to the side. I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
It's your passion. This is your livelihood is taken from you.
Worse than that, and I don't mean on the personal side.
I understand.
It's worse than that. Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah. And
then after that, I want to go to the media.
Sure. So around 2002. By the way, things were not always bad in BC, and that's part of the reason that I'm so. I mean, you were hearkening back to better times, and from a policy and strengths-based perspective as it relates to addiction, we were on a pretty, we had strengths. So we deinstitutionalized. Actually, my first clinical job was at Riverview Hospital in the 1980s, and we were aware that you close that, you got to open something new. You got to, you need a system, and we all knew what that system was. It was called community-based, recovery-oriented. This is language that goes back to the 80s. Okay, so people have been working in that tradition for a long time, and in other places, it's become sort of how we do what we do, right? Like go to Finland. You don't see sort of encampments of drug users and like people deciding, well, should we give everybody public drugs or not? Like that would be seen as crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. It's not seen as. It is crazy, and people around the world think that we're crazy.
That's yeah. So not everyone here
yet,
yet, right? Not everyone here. So there's there are these two paths, and it's not science that's going to decide which one is correct. It's going to be other things, values.
Yes.
But
like
that's which is its own important discussion. If anyone's listening and is with us so far, we probably have similar values.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people. I'm not sure if you can see the comments. I don't know. Can anyone see the comments?
I'm incapable of multitasking. I can pay attention to you and what I'm doing, and that's about it.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of people in my comments. Newton, can you see the comments on the screen? So can people see there's comments?
I don't see the comments on the screen.
Ah, yeah. Okay, on the chat.
Let me mention the data thing.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry.
No, I'll get that.
I just want to let the people there's a bunch of people commenting, and sometimes I'm new to this again, my friends. So sometimes you can put them in the screen so that everyone can see them on the screen. I don't want to do that because I don't want to blur your face or mine. We're too good looking. So sorry, go ahead, the clinical side.
Okay, so
if you and I went out to the clubs, bro, we'd be
one of the things that we've done. We do things like we've reorganized health authorities in BC, and we saw that you're going to have a bunch of health authorities. This is around like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and this is work I was involved with. And so use telehealth, video, this newfangled internet thing. To connect people, and that way we can, because most of the specialists are located in cities and towns. People need help all around BC. We all understood that we were networked, we're interdependent. For me, as a psychosocial integration guy, not only like in relation to addiction, but for many other reasons too. That made a lot of sense. So I ran a center for telehealth that connected all of BC, the Yukon, and Alberta, and family docs who do most of the delivery of care now, or primary health care, including most of the prescribing. They don't all want to lean excessively on prescribing, but they're starved for other resources. And so we then started building this thing called collaborative care. So family docs, the hospitals, mental health, addiction services, housing services in towns all start having breakfast together.
Yeah,
right?
it was a really amazing it was amazing
Developing
process.
relationships. It's not rocket surgery, right? Like people want to do
very
this.
simple.
They need support. They need and then we thought, well, okay, so we're doing all this stuff, and public servants recognizing that this is different, understandably want to know, okay, well, is it working? So we started developing research. And this is where things ultimately came to a head 20 years later. We started doing research in which we would do things like ask people for their consent to access data on them from their past and going forward as they entered this program, like say drug treatment court or community court or regular court, but with an addiction, and then follow them. And we did multiple studies. This is basically my career now, is what we've published there. But we also asked people for their consent to access data. And so that
I've had kids that were in my care that went through that stuff. I have had kids that were in my care that went through all that court stuff, and like
we may have had the opportunity to include them without knowing it in some of our publications.
The kids had to go to the judge kept sending kids to a treatment center in the southern east part of BC. I can't remember the treatment center. It's a beautiful place, but I had the opportunity because the social workers always wanted to drive the kids, and it was my opportunity, and I got a small stipend to do that, and I probably drove about 20 or 30 kids to this treatment center after they had gotten out. And, a lot of them I follow them, and a lot of kids, I get beautiful messages every Christmas. But one of the best parts of being a foster parent, if you do a good job, they'll come back and say, thank you. 4 years ago, I broke my back in 2019, and I was out for like 2 months in the Christmas, and these kids showed up in my house, bro. I got with a Christmas tree and stuff, and they just decorated my house, and it was the most amazing thing. So friends, if you're listening to this, right, like, you can be mad, you can be pissed off, you can be like angry, Hastings sucks, Canada shit, politicians are assholes. You have to, if you can take my advice, and I put you on the chalkboard right now, just walk into a room with a smile. Leave the room with a smile. I guarantee you left that smile on someone else's face. All we can do is be kind to one another and, hope for the best, hope for people like Julian, myself, and there's so many others out there doing the good work that we do to create awareness for change. I don't know where I just had to go there with that, but there we go. Go ahead, Julian. Sorry, I had to go there, but it's true, right? Like, these court things were so awesome, and the work that you did that I found out about, I want to applaud you. I don't know if anyone's told you that, but I really admire the work that you've done and created with not just you, but the groups of people that you worked with, and the communities, the social workers. There was social workers, there was probation officers, there was mental health workers, there was doctors, there was a whole team. I remember going to meetings for kids, 17 years old. I'd sit in a room with the kid. I bring the kid in, I bring him in. He's a tough kid. He just got, arrested because he was stealing a cop car and getting, 180 stitches in the chest from a dog. And, he had to go to court because he was doing heroin, and he had to go to the court, and he went to this special court, and his punishment was treatment. And his punishment actually was house arrest with Drew Couver. So I was house arrest with Drew Couver. So we spent 2 months together, took all the kids out of my house. It was just me and him and a couple of staff. He was a really, really high profile kid. God bless him. I just had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. He lives with his mom. He had to go to treatment, and he went to treatment a couple of times. He called me, "I'm fucking leaving. I can't do this anymore. They're asking me how I'm feeling. I want to punch someone out." And I'm just like, "Bro, just take it easy." And he was like, he'd like, "Oh, fuck." He'd tell me off, F you. I'd be like, "Okay, well, you know what? You might want to call Samantha." Click. I just hang up on him, right? Phone Samantha. Click. That was his treatment. His one-to-one, his key worker with Syrup. What is it called? Syrup. SYRP. I don't know if you remember those people. I get a phone call the next day. "Hey, thank you for hanging up on me." Tough love is good love. But yeah, you've done a lot of great work, and I just want to acknowledge that. So let's move on. So all this clinical work you were doing, all this great work that you were doing, what were you doing with it? Where did it go?
So almost all this research, which was on basically testing the this psychosocial integration theory with people who we regarded as kind of hardest to house, people who were barred from services and so on. That was kind of my focus across a lot of different studies. And then we looked at, well, where is there evidence of people sort of experiencing these needs around BC? Everyone, from reporting is familiar with the downtown east side. But if you look at where are people all around the province, we mapped at the community level the neighborhoods that had the highest concentrations of people who had been homeless, had been hospitalized multiple times for addictions, also hospitalized for mental illnesses, also charged with multiple crimes. And so there were we identified 2,200 people who were power users of all these different public sectors. 300
Across
of them
BC?
were in the downtown east side, but only 300. The rest were around the north, on the island, scattered all around.
Wow.
And we also showed that
God
most
bless.
of the people who wound up in crisis in the downtown east side started having problems elsewhere and moved as their problems got worse over.
Got to go where the big party is.
Yeah, we tracked a 10-year period. So the implications were super clear that the interventions that had been shown to help people most socially reintegrate, reduce or eliminate crime, reduce or eliminate medical crises, those interventions were needed all around the province in these communities that had evidence of high need. So why not start introducing that? Why not start shifting from the congregate low barrier housing into a portfolio of housing that better facilitates social reintegration with employment support? And why don't we start moving really quite aggressively away from the pharma first focus so that we're doing something more like what Switzerland does? Sometimes you'll hear from people like our provincial health officer comparisons to other nations, but without really acknowledging what goes on. And if you take my advice, I would regard anything these people are saying with a huge grain of salt, because they've been proven unreliable witnesses in terms of evidence so many times on really important topics. And I guess I should add here that this evidence of conflict. In 2019, Bonnie Henry released a report through her office, the provincial health officer, that we should decriminalize drugs and we should begin introducing a pharmaceutical supply, so-called safe supply. In 2020, not 1 year later, 4 of her close colleagues announced safe supply companies, including her predecessor as provincial health officer. This was a very unusual move, very, very unusual. And I think it had a big role to play, this sort of consensus that decriminalization and safe supply were going to be some kind of a huge positive innovation globally in addiction. In fact, that's how Bonnie wrote about it, that we are going to lead the world, she wrote, right? Boy, it was only a couple of years before people started looking to Vancouver and BC as like what not to do. But by now, our reputation as having got it wrong is cemented. The problem is that so many people took a personal stake in a position. It's very awkward now socially to walk that back. And we need
you can't, because you've walked the lie. I don't call it, I love Johnny Cash, walk the line. You've walked the lie. And once you've walked the lie 1 or 2 or 3 steps, it's easy to go, you know what? I don't feel good. I should back the pedal, let people know those were some bad steps. But once you've done it for 6 months, the cash flow starts flowing in. I love my kid, Nick Shirley, the kid that's, exposing all this corruption in Minnesota right now.
Right.
I talked to him a couple of nights ago. He's going to be on he's coming on my channel in a few weeks, my friends. I'm so blessed. But I don't know, man. I look at myself and my story when I was a foster parent, and people say, "Oh, foster parents make way too much money." And I was making really good money. It's really hard work. The kids got amazing service. Kids in foster care today, right now in foster care. So if you're in foster care, I kid you not. So if you have a 4-bed resource in foster care, so you want to be a foster parent in BC, go to ministry, apply. It's very easy today to become a foster parent. You get $1,600 per kid just for their living costs, their clothes, their food. That's not including the house they pay for you and all the shit they pay for you. Today, it's like 4 times as much as it was when I got my ass kicked out of my job, my career in 2021, because I wouldn't go see a family preservation worker to help me understand that if Samantha came home to my house and wanted to identify as Michael, I had to affirm Michael now. And I said, I'm not doing that. Next thing you know, I'm getting letters saying you're out. But there was a time there I almost felt guilty with the amount of money that I was getting. I was like, I don't know if I like this. I think I'm going to do something else. And I had to sit down with my psychologist and actually really look at it. And, compared to the work that I was doing, compared to what my past, I did it. But you look at these people that they have no right to be in this field. There's no, why do you become a psychologist? Why do you become a plumber? There's reasons for these things, but these people become this person. Then they get into these positions, and then someone says, here, I'm going to give you this contract. Or is it the big news today is Christina Freeland. $2.5 billion just went to the Ukraine. And a lot of people don't know this. And if you don't know this, don't worry, it's not that bad. But they're building like a $4 billion ski resort right now in Western Ukraine. While Eastern Ukraine's getting bombed, they're actually building this huge ski resort. It's like 3 times the size of Whistler. Where's the money going?
Yeah.
So we were at this place. You were talking about these 4 people. They went off. They're making all this money. Then what happened, boss?
Yeah. Well, they. I think I think they backed themselves into a corner. It's one way to explain why. 2024 now. So a year and a half ago. It might be less than that. The provincial health officer issued another report. She issues them periodically, of course, but this latest one was 112 pages. And the only message in this report was we need to support drug addict co-ops. Now, they use the term compassion club, hearkening back to the use of cannabis in the HIV/AIDS context decades ago. That's where the term comes from. Completely dissimilar. This is using a drug for relief of symptoms. This is not developing a mechanism to streamline access to drugs to people who have addictions. That's a whole different thing. Addiction is not really about drugs. It's about a loss of control. And you cannot restore control through any kind of biochemical mechanism that we know of today yet. In fact, mostly what you can do is enable the perpetuation of the addiction, meaning still a decrement in personal agency and control. So if we want to focus on treating addiction, we can't talk about heroin as a treatment for addiction. That makes no sense at all. Or opiate agonists, we use the acronym OAT. It stands for opiate agonist therapy. It does not stand for opiate agonist treatment, because we're talking about addiction, and the definition of addiction actually doesn't even involve drugs, because we have gambling addiction too. And gambling addiction is diagnosed exactly the same way, and the DSM is perfectly clear on this. These things are grouped together because they involve the same core neurotransmitter systems, brain pathways, and all the same behaviors. So we're not even really talking about something that is fundamentally about drugs. It's about loss of control in a context of otherwise chaos, meaninglessness, and of course, the trauma that's almost ubiquitous in this whole area. But that narrative that I'm summarizing, in contrast to we're going to legalize, we're going to introduce drugs, and that's going to make a big difference, that wound up pitting me, unbeknownst to me until it was too late, against the entire consensus of power in BC academia, where I work, and in
Wow.
government, where I've been working for the last several decades in BC and elsewhere. And all of a sudden, I received an order 1 week after briefing deputy ministers.
Pay attention, people.
In 2021, I got a letter on Friday afternoon saying, thanks for the last couple of decades of work. It's been really good. This is like the first page of the letter. And the second page is, please destroy everything by the end of the month. And we were in the process of renewing information sharing agreements when this happened. And one of the reasons I think that they wanted us to urgently destroy all this information, which, by the way, makes no sense at all in terms of science. We are
Zero.
obligated to,
You're a scientist.
especially when data are unusual, when they've been provided to us with the consent of people, we have an obligation to hold on to them for a whole variety of reasons. The government was saying, well, we were the source of that information, so we have the right to order you to destroy it. And one of the things that resulted in was the work that we had teed up, which was going to be looking over how the most recent government policies were performing, was now dead in the water. We couldn't do it because all the data were destroyed and we weren't going to be getting any new ones. So then I learned that my university wouldn't stand up for me. It was explained to me that there were other strategic priorities of the university that involved the same people who were behind the order to destroy data, and who I had, because they told me I had started to irritate. So some people,
you were a bad itch, bro.
Yeah,
you were a bad itch. We gotta have, like, you gotta laugh, because otherwise you just go crazy. I can get the letter, right? Like, 21 years is 21 years giving my life to kids and families, and you get the letter, and you're like, there's the letter. I didn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I fought them. I don't know what your thing was, is I appealed things, and that's a joke. But anyways, it's an important process to go down, because I actually have all of my 7 years, my last 7 years of files. They didn't ask me to destroy all the information.
Yeah.
So my lawyer now has them, because there's a lot of stuff that, you were talking about, that's there, that supports what I was trying to do in the foster care system. And I was a leader in the BC. It was one of the leading foster parents in BC. I helped change policy. I was doing some really cool stuff in the background, and to have it just pushed to the side, like what happened to you, I look at us as we're like kind of two parallels. You're the academic, I'm the street fighter. And I pity the fool when we come together and we start making some change, bro, because it's going to happen. It has to happen. There's no other way, because there's no corner to be back in.
No,
no more corner.
And as you're saying right now, and as I know from talking previously, we simultaneously became unpopular for mostly the same reasons.
Yep.
In that what we were advocating for was, was a whole different approach that had people becoming successful in the case of foster youth, basically having the most realistic and well-supported chance possible to become successful adults.
The kid. And I got a story. I got a story about this. Exactly what you just said. So, and I'm allowed to tell this story because the person I'm going to talk about is my son now. I adopted him, my last foster kid. So he comes from a very well-to-do family. His father was a psychiatrist, 35, 40 years in Canada, millions of dollars donated to different, super awesome, great guy. But the kid comes into my care, and he was on 5 different types of medication. And one was for a severe physical issue that he had. This boy, he was 11 years old at the time. It was something to do with going to the bathroom. And he was in my house, and the ministry always was like dumbfounded. How does Andrew change these kids? These kids come into his home, and all of a sudden, within like 2 months, the kid's stabilized. He's not doing crime. He's not doing drugs. He's eating healthy. He's acting out. There's no more acting out. So I got a call from the psychiatrist team at Children's Hospital. Andrew, we need you to come in. I'm like, I phoned my resource worker. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, Andrew, could you show up tomorrow at 11? There's a meeting about you. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go into the meeting. There's the minister for Ministry for Children and Family Development. There's the top dogs at the children's hospital. It's like 13 people around the room. The doctor said, how did you get the kid to stop pooing himself? Like, how do you stop him from this? And I said, well, it was really easy. He slowly stopped taking the medication after 2 weeks. And then I sat the kid down and said, okay, from now on, starting tomorrow, you're either going to poop in your pants, you're going to use the toilet. And every time you use the toilet, I went under the table and I put a bag of chocolate bars on the table. I said, you're going to get a chocolate bar, whatever one you want. The kid, you could just see his smile light up. Well, 3 weeks later, he wasn't using the pharmaceutical medication that the doctors were giving this kid in order to fix the kid when all the kid needed was love, care, and attention. And this is the shit that I got in trouble for. And that's why I always say, just be nice.
Yeah.
It just goes a million miles.
Yeah, it's you know, I mean, I'm sure we could go back and forth with stories like that. You know, you sparked.
It's amazing.
I was after finishing these trials, and we already, by the time we did so these randomized trials where people got to choose where they went versus being assigned to all live together versus, you know, whatever's going on, usual care. The results were super, super clear. And by the way, all three of those conditions cost about the same if you're a taxpayer. Usual care, which is like living on the street, in and out of shelters, jail, hospital, etc., follow people for years, costs about the same as housing people all in a place all together with supports on site. Yeah. And also about the same as supporting them choosing from a portfolio of housing that's all dispersed throughout Metro, which is where we were doing our work. All about the same. And I explained these results to the housing lead at Vancouver Coastal. They brought together their team, and this guy knew him because he trained at our program, and he says, well, that's really interesting, but we're not going to do that because if we allow people to live scattered, it's going to be much harder for our staff to monitor them. So, okay, let's just say the quiet part out loud. We're designing services that work for us, right? Like basically. We're going to make our job easier so we can work from the computer at home while we watch TV and eat Javada. So that's one part of it is people sort of, but also like, why are people in all different sectors, why are they making sort of questionable decisions about their services in the first place? And part of it is no one at the top. And in our system, in our system of provinces and territories in Canada, I believe it has to be the premier. No one at the top is driving a vision that involves having supports for the housing team, so that there's a reemployment specialist and someone's working with employers like in construction and services and various to keep a steady pipeline of jobs available. No one's working with corrections. No one's working with healthcare. When we looked at about 4,000 people who had gone into St. Paul's Hospital, all for addictions, with or without other mental illnesses, they stayed on average for 3 weeks, and 1 in 5 were discharged to no fixed address. Basically, they're discharged to the streets. And those people were very likely to be readmitted. So we have this. So of course, people in the hospital sector start to, with no outside resources. I mean, you're literally spending weeks caring for people, trying to encourage them to pursue a better, healthier path, sustain the improvements that they made in hospital. And then at the end of that, you're discharging them to a shelter or the streets like this. So you start to become more stingy with your resources, morale goes down, outcomes obviously deteriorate. And we need to restore a system that anticipates that people, once they leave hospital, are obviously going to need to go somewhere else, or if someone has the misfortune to go into the justice system because of crimes and they have an addiction, but we're going to hold them accountable. Well, look at things like drug treatment court and programs that at least provide people with a pathway to avoid prison and immediately prove their capability to reintegrate into society.
And this is the
Many
work.
people
This is the
choose
work. This is the work we were doing for years
It's
before they
part of
said,
it.
"Burn
Part
it."
of it. Yeah. We
Fire
had
Marshal Bill.
we had to destroy that. So we had programs that were court related, that were multi-ministry around social reintegration. But we also had purely voluntary programs where people were just like, we met them on the street or in shelters or in parks, and we, as long as they met our inclusion criteria, they had to have been homeless a long time, they had to be struggling, with mental illnesses and addictions. Then you're in, right? And so then we just.
Sorry, I was just talking to the moderator. There's some person in the chat. I was trying to get him back in. Sorry. Go
anyway,
ahead.
all of that was gone, and the thing that haunts me most over time is that if we had been able to continue, so basically I had to disband my whole team and their layoffs. I'm not able to support students anymore. And the center that I directed was closed by our university. So it's all, for now, it's all over. We could reactivate it. But if we had been doing the work, if we had continued doing the work that we had been doing, I believe we would have been able to show as early as like late 2021 some of the red flags in relation to BC policies. And if we'd been able to continue doing it into 2022 and on, after all, we had already been doing it for 2 decades continuously, we would have been able to give the government clear evidence that it could have considered and hopefully acted on. Instead, we were exposed to these denials of problems. There's no diversion. There's, things are going well. Safe supply and decrim are saving lives. We actually were told by authorities, which was a lie.
Safe supply.
Yeah.
Do there is something called safe supply. It's actually true. Like people say, "Oh, it's safe supply. There's nothing safe about supply." I'm like, well, it is true. When you go to the doctor and you're a certain size, I'm 250 pounds. I'm this age, so the doctor knows how much painkillers I need to take if needed. Right. That's a safe supply. Now, when he gives me the pills, like I was taking them for 19 years, when he gives me the pills, and he's like, "Andrew, this will be good enough for a week. If you take too many, it's not going to be good." Like, oh, that was a safe supply. But there's no safety in giving all these homeless people the amount of drugs that they give them. I was on the street January 2nd. The kid was from the hospital at Road to Recovery. He was at Road to Recovery in St. Paul's, and he had 3 hours off. So he went down to Main and Hastings, and I found him, and he was just ripped, ripped. He's like, "Oh, you're Drew Couver, bro. I want to be on your channel, man." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Like, "Hey, you got to look at my back, bro." And I'm like, "Your back?" I'm like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Look at my back." And he just took his clothes off in front of me. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had about 8 to 12 big, huge Band-Aids on his back. And I was like, what the fuck are those? Oh, those are fentanyl patches.
Right.
I wonder how much those cost. Like, it just, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. So you're everything goes, all the great work, again, great, phenomenal work that you and your team and the teams across the province did with people like me and other groups. We all came together and collaborated. And the head honcho says, get rid of all the stuff. We don't want any evidence of what works, because we're going to lay this other thing out, and we're going to give these 4 people some companies, and then we're just going to roll it all out and see what happens. It's like rolling the dice, the crap table, and you're never going to get lucky sevens. It's just not going to fucking happen. And we're at this place now. And like, my story was, I was on the opiates. I couldn't get off of them. I went into, I'll never forget taking my son. My doctor had cancer. So I had a locum. A locum, friends, if you don't know, is a doctor that has your doctor has like a person that comes in and covers while they're sick. It's like a teacher assistant or something. So I couldn't find a doctor that would give me my prescription because I was on oxycodone. So I get my last prescription. I've got my a week and a half supply. Plus I've got a 2-week supply. So I got 3.5 weeks supply. And I go, I need to go to the hospital because in 3 weeks, I'm not going to have any. So I go to the hospital, talk to the doctor, talk to the front desk. Remember this, Newton? I went with Newton. So go to the front door, tell them, hey, I've got my medication, my locums, my doctor's got cancer. My locum's not going to be here in 3 weeks. So I need some medication. They're like, oh, okay, well, we'll put you in. So then I have to tell the nurse. So I have to tell the nurse the exact same story. Then I have to talk to the doctor. And this is at the RAP center. So I go in to talk to the doctor. So I sit down, me and my son are there. And I have my bag by my feet. The doctor looks at me and she goes, so what do you need? It's like, oh, I said, well, it's nice to meet you too. My name's Andrew. And I told her the story that I just told you guys now. And the doctor looks at me and she goes, oh, well, that's not the story I was told. I was told you used all your medication and now you're out. You need emergency. And I was like, I looked at my kid. He's got autism. He looks at the doctor and the boy looks at the doctor and goes, that's not true. You know, autistic kids are like, you know, fucking tell you if your shirt's red, it's red. Even if it's not, he knows it is. It's not change in his mind. It was amazing. That's when I started realizing, like, it's done. Like it's this whole addiction recovery. Duke, shut up. I got a 9-pound chihuahua over there. It's just crazy. It's gone mad every time I go downtown. And I'm walking downtown yesterday, and we'll get to the end here soon, my friends. We'll hang out for another 15 minutes or so. And we'll close the shop down. And I hope, Julian, you'll come back again. But I'm walking downtown. Just 1 second. Duke, quiet. So I'm walking down Hotel California, start talking to these guys. He's like, yeah, we're going to go to St. Paul's and get loaded. I'm like, you're going to go to St. Paul's and get what? He goes, yeah, we're going to go to get loaded. They got recliners there. They got lazy boys. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, no, man, seriously. I'm like, tell me what's going on. And I know the one guy, his name's Cliff. Known him for, they all love me. When I go downtown, Julian, all the addicts love me. All the people that are hanging with the addicts that don't know me yet are about to love me. All the staff at these clinics, all these people, they hate me. They see me coming. They slam the gates down now. Drew Couver's coming. Better lock up shop. Lock up shop. I'm like, what the go, man? So I'm like, take me to St. Paul's. Like, can you take me to St. Paul's? So we're going to St. Paul's, and friends, if you're new to the channel, welcome, subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff. I don't try to promote my shit. I just do my shit. And then, like, if you like it, you'll come along for the ride. I go to St. Paul's and he takes me upstairs, and no shit, Sherlock. They've got the fancy lazy boy recliners in a pop-up tent on the 4th floor where they used to have an area where visitors could go. There's now 3 big tents. One tent's the admin tent. That's what I got into. I was filming them, the nurses, for the 2 nurses and the lady that was loaded that's working there because they're all loaded that work there too, right? It's just insane. And I was sitting there looking, and there's 15, I know how much furniture is. I've made some money. $15,000, $20,000 hospital lazy boy recliners, the ones you get to do blood. There's 2 people in there, and their eyes are like this. And I never filmed them because I'm not going to do that in the hospital. I'll do it on the street, but not in the hospital. You know, I'm waiting for that video to go viral because, well, the one did in Nanaimo, there was a big machine outside the hospital selling pipes and stuff. Yeah. Well, shit, man, you don't need that no more. You just go to St. Paul's Hospital and you get all the supplies you need, and you get a safe place. If you're there and you don't look like you should be there, like me, the security is going to surround you. The workers are going to start swearing at you, and you're going to get threatened and beat up. And they're not going to beat me up, though. It's a mess. So Julian, like, we've done some amazing conversation tonight. What do you forecast? I mean, what's your genie in the bottle say? Like, it can't work anymore. It's going to fall apart. Like, what do you think may happen if you have an idea? And once that happens, what's our way out of this? And you and I've had conversations about this. I've said, everyone, I told Julian, you should run it for Parliament, man. You've just got so much experience and a wealth of knowledge. Maybe you're not that guy, but What's the genie? What's your genie? And how do we fix it?
Well, one of the greatest failings of our current approach is that we've got a whole bunch of reactions. So, your story about St. Paul's and setting up the lazy boys on that roof patio is
Amazing.
one sort of insight into, like, there are innumerable other examples like that. We went from one drug consumption site in BC to 58 over a very, very short span of time. So this is communities all around the province that are, where the primary strategy has been some kind of a short-term reactive thing. And maybe if you ask sort of some of the nurses or some of the docs in the hospital, they might say, oh, this is better because now they're not using as much in the washrooms or things like that. But any benefits, are going to be very, very contained to this very, very circumscribed. There's no attention policy-wise to an origin story or a destination. So where did these people come from? And we've already discussed, they come from situations of usually of disadvantage, disproportionately foster care, disproportionately other kinds of childhood and origin stories that are fraught with adversity, this adversity term that we use. And research bears this out. So let's focus policies on reducing some of the risks among well-identified and defined groups and act that way. On the other hand, when people are in crisis, let's have a kind of a destination for them. Let's have an idea. So the judges at drug court have that. Many of the sort of recovery-oriented programs have that, but it's not normalized at all. And so if we were to get back on this, and I'm not saying something that is unprecedented even in BC, I'm talking about something that has been aggressively thwarted, marginalized, ridiculed, and people who were advocates for that view have been personally attacked, you and me among them, and many, many others. So let's turn our attention back to that. So why would we do that? Okay, the simple answer is, the consequences of what we're doing, we're always going to become increasingly unsustainable. Trauma was never going to be addressed or improved among the people, the target group who are at highest risk. All they were going to get were drugs. That means essentially we're introducing a fungible asset into their worldview, something that they can go and claim and sell so that they can get other stuff that they want more. That means that the net amount of, the gross volume of drugs in our community simply goes up. So we need to get away from that, but a consequence of it has been not only increasing deaths, increasing suffering among the at-risk group, so we have completely failed to address the crisis itself. We've actually expanded the crisis because now first responders, family members, people simply going about their daily lives, business owners, police among first responders, entire sectors of our society are being beset with hardships that no person in society should be expected to endure as a normal course. These are unusual and above and beyond and essentially unsustainable. So when we talk about sort of mass addiction, that for me is really what distinguishes it from just a lot of people with addictions. It's sort of the equivalent of addiction's secondhand smoke. It's the permeation of addiction throughout society to a point where all of a sudden everyone needs to lean in and have not for long. We don't have to do this for a great period, but we all have to lean in and have a conversation about addiction, how we're going to turn things around, how we're going to make changes, ensure that those changes are made. And the key ones, from my perspective in BC, are yes, different elected leaders, because the current ones have been really unwilling or don't see a need to change the public service, but we need to change the public service, and it needs to be structured in a way that left hand and right hand are playing in a coordinated way with each other. And that includes also keeping our communities and our perimeter secure. against precursors and other things like that, and actually taking crimes involving money laundering seriously. So there are a bunch of things we can do to disincentivize the supply of drugs to BC. But the greatest opportunity we have is to substantially reduce demand for drugs. And if we do both together, focus on increasing in obvious ways the supply of drugs in BC, and also in similarly obvious and well-proven ways, reduce the demands in life that lead people to the pathway of addiction, then we'll be doing everything we can, and we can measure it. We can measure it. I vote for me to be involved in measuring it.
I vote for you. I vote for you. I vote for you. Listen,
but seriously, I want people to really understand that this is, of course, a crisis, but it is exactly the type of crisis that if we were to sort of lean into it, understanding addiction is not only something that benefits other people, members of our community, but if we let it actually involves us. It involves us in ways that are part of the solution, and it can even improve how we lead our own lives, because it's such a rich source of insight, addiction, into both the worst of us and the best of us. This flow state, this science of optimal experience, is actually very closely related to the positive meaning of addiction. Giving yourself over to things voluntarily, finding that niche for yourself. We all sort of orient to that. We love it when it happens. And it's part of the opportunity that we have in BC, and any peoples do. But when they come together, as Portugal did actually quite recently, their strategy was an all of society strategy. Every person in Portugal was told, you should see yourself in this plan. It's a marvelous opportunity to establish a forward-looking and cohesive, more cohesive sense of connection to the people that we rub shoulders with as British Columbians. And don't 100%. We need that right now?
We need it. We need as much of it as we can. And the things you were talking about, when the people that I've worked with in sobriety, people like off the streets, and I remember one kid there about 2 years ago. I got a call from a family up in the northern part of BC. Took a plane, landed, met family, separated them all. I did an intervention, like the interventions on TV. That's another little click that I do in the background. I got this guy. He was doing Fetty, and he was doing heroin during the day, and then Fetty at night. And he had not slept for about 3 weeks. So I went up there. It was a life or death situation. Went up there, got the kid. He was 20. I think he's about late 20s. I took him to my buddies. There's a lake close to this. It's up by Prince George. I took him to this lake. I had a buddy that has a house on the lake. I got some drugs, because it's what they used to do back in the day, back in AA. The guys would come to the Alano Club. There'd be a gun safe in the Alano clubs. And I've seen this when I came into when I went to those meetings back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was always booze there. I was like, well, this is an Alcoholics Anonymous. Why is there booze in the Alcoholics Anonymous room? Well, it's serious. Like, you can't just take someone cold turkey. So I've learned a lot of different ways. Unlike an academic, I'm not an academic at all. I do things a different way. We get them done. Maybe different than Julian, but I get them done just the same way he does. We just have different paths, different cars, different boats. So I get some supply. We get the guy, take him to Buddy's house, wean him down after 10 days, get him into a truck, drive him down to Vancouver, put him in a house with Buddy and me. After 5 days, he's down. He's just smoking pot now. This is like 14 days. This guy's off of like heavy doses of fentanyl, and like heavy doses. Like, the guy was a mess. Got him off everything. He was just smoking weed. Now, one of my past careers in 2016, because of the drugs and the pharmaceutical stuff I was on for serious back surgeries, I had an opportunity to become the vice president for media relations for the first publicly traded company that did marijuana, Green Rush Financial. So I had some friends. So I phoned up one of my friends and said, hey, can you get some bud for me? I need a half an ounce of weed, and I need it to be like no like no THC. Like I need the hippie's nightmare. It's the Charlotte's Web stuff that takes the kids that have epilepsy. It's the same sort of thing. It's marijuana, but you're not getting high. So I got the guy smoking this stuff for 5 days before I drove him and dropped him off the treatment. And just as I was dropping him off, I said, "Hey, bro, like you might as well take this with you." He's like, "I can't take that. I'll get kicked out." I'm like, "Bro, you don't get kicked out." He's like, "Why not?" I said, "Read the fucking label." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Read the fucking label." So he looks at the label because now he's calm. He's a kid. He can actually, after 16 days, like look at something and concentrate. It only takes 10 to 15 days before you get someone knocked clean and clear off of this shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy, these doctors. So the guy started to laugh. He goes, "How long have I been smoking this?" I said, 4 days, bro. I said, "You're going into treatment with 3 days full of sobriety." And, I get I'm not going to go there, but I get emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I walk down, you see those people and Newton, I have a clipboard. I've been working on this project and friends, if you're here and you're listening, there's a project coming. I've never gone to university. Well, I have. I did, cheated my way in, went to real estate at UBC School of Business. And you have all these, you do these questionnaires in university, right? To take, like, you ask someone a question and you have to do a survey. So I'm like, I'm going to level up and I'm going to do surveys down on Main and Hastings. So I have a book. I don't know where it is. Newton. I have a thing. I have a survey that I get the guys to write. And it basically says, the question is, this is always the profound one. If you had an opportunity to go to detox, and at detox, you would get harm reduction medication. You get like Suboxone or Sublocade or heroin or fentanyl. Like, you go to detox today, friends. You go to, because you got a little bit of a cocaine problem, they give you Dexedrine. That's like pharmaceutical grade, like speed. You go there because you're heroin. Where's the clipboard? You go there because you're doing heroin. They give you another opiate. You go there because you're drinking. They give you another drug that, like, if you have a couple of drinks, here it is here. Is that I gotta see, I'm doing a survey. It's amazing, Julian. I'm thinking about you doing these surveys, just so you know. It's your fault that I'm actually doing surveys. It's your fault because I gotta level up like Julian, like he's got to level up like me. I'm gonna take him down the streets the next couple of weeks. We're gonna do a video, I hope. The question is, if you went to detox and had an opportunity to go to detox where you went to detox and you detoxed, like you actually detoxed, would you go? Yes or no? All of them, like, is there the percentages here somewhere? The percentages was 92% of them will go to detox with me after 5 minutes talking to them. If there's a place for them to go after detox that's clean, no drugs, no, like, you're not allowed to use drugs in these places, they'll go that moment right now. I can take like hundreds of people right now. So if you're listening, send me some money because I want to open up a treatment center. Julian's going to run it and we're going to get a whole bunch of people sober. If we got to do it this way to show the government that it's working, maybe then they'll listen. Other than that, we're just going to have to continue doing the great work that I'll take some credit that I do, the great work that Julian does. There's some people there's some people in the chat. Arnold, Russ kind of, he's an amazing guy. There's so many people out there that just do good work because, Julian's been touched by addiction. We all been touched by addiction. I asked people, I was outside of David Eby's office today for an hour talking to people with my camera. Julian, some lady, I thought she was a wokie. I was scared. I was going to say, "So what do you think of David Eby?" She's like, "Burn this place down." I'm like, "Holy smokes, who are you? Let's talk." And she's like, "I can't, I like the guy, he was a nice guy, always seemed like genuine." I don't know, do I run? People have asked me to run in politics. I'm like, I'm not a politician. I'm not a politrictor. But if someone doesn't, I might have to. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited for the future. I'm actually really excited for 2026. I don't know. How do you feel, Julian? Are you excited for 2026? Do you think we've gone to the hump of the hill and we kind of looking down now and looking back? What do you think?
I'm way too optimistic by nature, and I've been wrong so many times in the past.
No, you were right for a long time. It's just been the last couple of years since they axed
I've
you.
been wrong about, surely things are going to change now. Like when my colleagues announced that they were starting pharma-related companies and using their academic or their public service jobs, I thought, no, this is not good. This can't last.
This is ethical. This is an ethical problem.
And then it just became the new normal. And not only that, but I started to get in trouble for calling attention to it. So my ability to read our collective tolerance for suffering or impropriety is not that great. But I do see things moving increasingly toward kind of unsustainable levels of suffering. I thought we were actually already past that, though. But the numbers of people, this mass addiction phenomenon, is, if there's a silver lining in it, I think it's that it draws so many people into a conversation out of necessity that it gives us a moment to re-envision a better future. And from a practical standpoint, no change is going to happen unless there are meaningful changes at the top level of public service advising on this topic. As long as it's filtered through a cadre that stands by what we've been receiving these last many years, nothing is going to change. So if I can, that's a necessary.
If I can interject, so how we get there is by sending me to Parliament, and then me hiring the people to come in, because the people that are in and the new people that are going to come in because the other people are leaving, they're probably going to be the same type of people.
They're going to be the same people. They're always the same people.
Yeah. So we need to stand up. Someone needs to step in, like Dallas Brody, like other people need to start charging in and making change. Dallas Brody, I had a conversation with Dallas today. God bless 1BC and God bless all that childish shit. Like there's some people just, I'm childish too sometimes. They got into a fight, it all fell apart. But Dallas has got the name back, and she's there still strong, and I'm in her corner. I'm beside her, just as I'm beside Paul Ratchford and the whole group. I don't take sides. But when I'm boss, you better take my side. I've hired and fired some people. But the reality is, we need to get into those positions in Parliament so that we can actually drive things. And like I said, if you're watching this and you're an MLA, like I said, there's 9 of you that I've reached out to. Claire Rattay. I mean, yes. We've had some conversations early, right after the AGM. We had some conversations, but when I seen that she went to Road to Recovery and did a photo op with Guy Flashio, I was like, I'm not talking to her no more. I actually sent her a few emails, but it's just crickets. That's what I said. They're called crickets, like this. Is that the word? Crickets. Harman Bangu. I can't pronounce his last name. God bless him. I saw that guy in Victoria, and he actually went down to the heart of the beast, and he walked it and videoed it, and he was blown away. He's blown away. He's one of the only fucking politicians I've seen go walk down there. Dallas is going to come down there. Like I said, I have friends. I've got to go to Winnipeg next week to do some documenting about our Wabi canoe guy there. He's going to open up a harm reduction safe supply building. Are you ready for this? It's in between. I know they're in here listening, so I am coming. I've committed. I'm going to buy my tickets tonight. He's going to there's a building between this elementary school and the 3 apartment buildings that are for low income. And these low income buildings are mainly people that are in there are immigrants that came here 30, 40 years ago. And their kids are now older, and they're in there. And there's doctors, there's dentists, there's people there. But they're going to put a harm reduction site right in between the school and these buildings. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. And then they shut down Parliament on December 3rd. And December 4th, he went on CTV and announced that he's opening it up. So if you're out there and if you're listening to me, and if you think you can have a voice, if you think you might have a voice, I will guarantee you, I'm not a psychologist, but I've hired many in my lifetime. You're thinking the right way. You probably have a really good voice, and you could probably utilize that voice in a very presentable way so that other people can hear just the same way I did a couple of years ago. Heavy doses of opiates. I was a mess. I knew I had to change. I did it with the right supports. I've got some balance. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm super addicted to changing the world right now, but it's a healthy one, isn't it, Julian? It's a healthy one.
A key thing, a key differentiator, if you're wondering, is and if you're looking at your
Shit, he's going to put me on the chalkboard.
No. Does your addiction, if it is an addiction, does it serve to motivate you and draw you closer to other people in some way, or is it serving to maintain distance and protect you from other people, isolate you? And those are key, insights for all of us. In 2026, when we talk about consumption sites, if you're looking over, you have responsibility for a community, and people are saying, well, we need a consumption site, that means one of two things. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a consumption site. It means that you've got a group of people somehow in this community that are so unstable. They lack adequate housing. They're likely not employed, and so they need a place to go to consume drugs, because they don't have a place and stability themselves. So one question you can ask yourself is, well, do we then go to the consumption site, or can we go directly to providing them with the stability they need, first of all, to have a place that's safe and secure, and then work with them to take next steps? BC went, as I said earlier, from 1 to 58 consumption sites with no exit strategy. Deaths soared. And one of the explanations for the soaring deaths is that even people who use consumption sites use them for a minority of the numbers of times they take drugs. So that means that for every person that's using a consumption site, they're actually using drugs elsewhere in the community without a place to live, a greater proportion of the time, putting themselves at risk, dying, requiring the attention of first responders. So kicking this can down the road, the meager distance that is involved in a consumption site is not going to buy you much time if you're a leader. Not only is the problem at its root not going to change at all, it's going to metastasize, because you're not doing anything to prevent the influx of people into this addict community, but you're also going to be creating other immediately proximate risks. First of all, consumption sites don't furnish people with drugs. So as soon as a drug dealer knows there's a consumption site, it's basically shooting fish in a barrel, right? I'm going to park outside.
I'm in Surrey.
Drug dealers outside the elementary school next to the apartments. The same dealers are networked into other things, unfortunately. I'll bring up human trafficking as an example, theft, fencing, right? Like we're talking about organized crime now. Yeah. And it's going to park right outside your government-funded building.
I'm at Surrey. We're in Surrey, Julian, and we're in Surrey. Like the last story, I always love storytelling. I'm in Surrey a couple months ago. It's like maybe June, July, May. I don't know. It's on my video, friends. Check it out. Please go look at my videos. It just helps me make money, because I'm not making any money right now. We're in Surrey. I'm like, I got to go to Surrey because I just do Vancouver. I got to go to Surrey today. So go to Surrey. I go to the harm reduction. I call them harm induction. There's no harm reduction. It's induction, because they go there and they get inducted into that clan. And once they're in that clan, there's no moving, because that's what they're familiar with and that's their family. So I'm sitting there going like, what's going on here? Something's weird. There's like this fat dude, this white guy. He's just like sort of over shape. He's got new clothes on, but he looks blitzed. He's super high. And he's walking the path back and forth. He's the guard dog. He works at the harm reduction site. I've got him on video. He totally told this whole story. He makes $34 an hour working for the city of Surrey. He's blitzed. He's allowed to get high while he's working. He's just not allowed to nod off. He's not allowed to nod off.
Yeah.
And guess who else he gets paid by? The drug dealers, the keepsakes for the cops. So he's making probably the $50 an hour to get high, and he's got $300 kicks on. And they're more expensive than my $250 kicks. And I tell you, I was pissed. Bro, because I got some nice kicks. I played ball. I do security for some big NFL players and NBA players, and they buy me cool gifts. But this kid, and I go, and friends, please, when you're listening, these people on the streets, these people robbing your backyards, these people robbing your house, they're addicted. They're in the art of suffering. And the reality is our government's not allowing them to level up because the government's allowing their friends to open up these places, what we've talked about, where they can go and have drugs or drug products to use their drugs, and they're all making money, and all these people are suffering. And the reality is, and people say, why do you continue doing this work, Andrew? I'm getting bags now. Why do you continue doing this work? And I said, because I'm going to change it.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm going to change it. And if it takes me 16 hours a day of work, 4 hours a day of documenting this shit, I mean, they slam the doors on me now. I'm officially unloved downtown Vancouver. And it's not by the junkies. It's not by the crackies. It's not by the drunkards. It's by the workers that are working for the places that are loaded. And the staff that are there actually working, they don't give a fuck about me. They don't care. They're like, oh, it's that Drew Couver guy. It's the staff that are loaded, that are getting the paychecks. And then the staff that get fired, my email on my website, it's like I probably get 10 new emails a day. I get disclosed information all the time that I've had to unfortunately take time to now let police know that there's this person missing, or this hotel has 5 people missing out of it in the last month, human trafficking. There's stuff going on there that I'm not allowed to talk about now because that's just the reality. Because I know what I'm focused on. My focus is this, Julian. I think I know what your focus is. My focus is continuing to level up by communicating with guys like Julian, listening to guys like Russ, having conversations with people on the street, and listening to what they want and what they need. And all I hear consistently is they want the 90s back.
Yeah, it's achievable, man. It's achievable.
We will. Anyways, my friends, I really want to thank Julian. Do you any last words?
Let's keep the conversation going, and people listening, keep the conversation going. If it's not already going, start it where you live. And there's a huge amount of opportunity. Just it's truly immense, and we can end this. I've recently finished a book on ending mass addiction. Plug. Oh, okay.
Plug.
It's being reviewed. I've got a very lovely editor taking a look at it right now, and it's in its latest and greatest form. So hopefully that'll be out. But there are resources.
No. Look to. You're not going to get off that. You're not going to get off that easy, Julian. It's a great book. Your editor's awesome. Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. What is it? Can you tell us anything about it?
Yeah, it's broken down into 8 principles. First of all, what's addiction? What is mass addiction? But what are 8 principles that we can follow individually, but maybe more importantly, collectively, to prevent mass addiction in the first place? And if we are suffering with mass addiction, things we can do to end it as quickly as possible. And that's really what the book is about. And it touches a great deal on trauma as well, but it's only insofar as trauma is integral to the sort of addiction story.
Thank you so much, Julian, for coming on. I'm gonna end here, friends. I've always have these stories. I've had the fortunate opportunity to have lunch with President Carter in Colombia. I've had the opportunity to, work with some fairly high level NBA and NFL players, Odell Beckham, I've got his jersey and I've met some really Eddie Vedder, done some amazing work that's allowed me to be around some really profound, impactful people in society. But bro, I tell you, Julian, I can't wait to get the book out, and I can't wait to get that book signed and have your book in my house, because you and people like you, Russ, all these people, Dallas Brody, you're my heroes. Again, I really mean that. Like, I mean that so much. If it wasn't for you, it wasn't for, Elon allowing X to be on and me finding you, I wouldn't have found you. But I would have eventually, but I'm just
Bless you, man.
so
Bless
blessed,
you.
bro.
No,
I'm so blessed.
I know you earned your way into the
The table.
The knowledge, right? The knowledge
Knowledge keepers.
that we're both drawing on, and others that you've mentioned. There's a very clear tradition, and but you're doing something above and beyond that by getting the word out. I love your videos, and here I'm honored to help kick off this platform. But
Oh, it's amazing.
Making the conversation happen is essential. It's essential. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian. And again, friends, don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Like, comment away, send me money, because I always love money. And God bless. So next Monday, I've got 3 big guests the next 3 Mondays. I'm not going to tell you who, because next week I'm still waiting if they're going to be next week or the 3rd week. But in 2 weeks, it's going to be a big one. I'm, like I said, I've being in Vancouver and being at, mass trauma the bomb of mass trauma across the world. We've had these influencers, these Tyler Olivieras, these Chris Muslis. These guys have 1 million. This guy's got 1.8 million followers, and he talks to me every 3 days, and he's watching my stuff, and he's now ready to come to Vancouver. And this guy's traveled all around Colombia. He's currently right now in Germany. I met him in London at Trafalgar Square. I'm blessed, and that's my job, is to bring these people to you so that you can learn, and we can collaborate, and we can make Canada better again. I won't say great again, but we're definitely going to get back. Thank you, my friends, and God bless. Good night. And